Staining and weathering a wooden structure is a main ingredient for an overall effect of a layout. What you try to do is to vary the different weathering techniques on various structures. Basically, you don't want the structures being the same color throughout the whole layout. So, basically, what you want to do is go into a heavy weathering technique and a moderate weathering technique. As you go out in everyday occurrences, you will see buildings with different techniques, different weathering, and what you're going to try to do is incorporate all these ideas into a layout to make the layout look very realistic. This particular structure here is a 30s gas station, and as you can see, it has a bleached white wall on it. Now, what we have done with this particular structure, we wanted to show a real heavy weathering. So what we had done was we put a walnut stain underneath and dry brushed a white over it, streaking in some grays and some browns. This automatically gives you an appearance of heavy weathering. The building's been around for a long time, hasn't been really maintained that well. And back in the old days, in the 20s and 30s, this was very, very common. Now, there's other techniques to use, but what I would like to do is give you two examples of how to stain and weather buildings. Remember, it really doesn't mean a lot that the model is built properly. The whole key to an overall appearance is staining and weathering and how the final appearance of the building is portrayed. What I'm going to show you now is how to begin a base on staining and weathering a wooden structure. What I have in front of me is just a wall with doors and windows already cut out. Now, the first method I'm going to show you is what I consider a heavy to a moderate weathering technique. The first step we're going to do is we're going to put a base coat on the wall. Now, the product I use is Flocal. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a flow stain, and this is a walnut color. It's a deep brown, and what we're going to do is apply this onto the wall as your base coat. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a 1/4-inch brush, simply dip it into the flow stain because this is already thinned, so no thinning is necessary. And what you're going to do is brush it onto the wall and cover the whole surface. And again, you don't have to worry about how much you're putting on. Just make sure that the whole wall is basically covered. Once it's on, you're just going to wipe it off with a paper towel to basically dry it off. Once it's wiped off, you're going to set this section aside to dry. Now, the very important part here is you want to let this dry at least 24 hours, if not more. What this is going to do is the wood will absorb this stain and the top coat will dry before you go to apply the main color. The colors we're going to use for the main color is Reefer White. We're going to use earth to highlight over the Reefer White to give it some additional weathering. What you're going to do is take a wide brush, dip it into the paint, and you're going to wipe most of it off on a paper towel. This is basically known as a dry brush method. Once you have most of it off on a paper towel, you're going to apply the paint to the wall. And what you're going to do is just brush it on. And what you don't want to do is cover all of the wood surface. Try to get as much paint off the brush as you can before you go back for more. Now again, what's good about this is if you want to show a real heavy weathered building, you could put very little paint on the wall. If you want to show just some signs of beginning to peel or age, you can apply more paint and cover more of the walnut. Basically, what I have here is a medium weathered building. Once you've applied the main color, you're going to take a little bit of earth. Again, dry brush most of it off. You're just going to streak it on, just a hair, at various spots, randomly. Don't be too concerned about having it uniform because weathered buildings are not uniform. If you get too much of the earth on here, like I just did, just take your white and go back over it. Once that's completed, basically, that's it. As you can see, this wall section has aged brown coming through. You have your main color, which is your white. and you have a little bit of the white turning into a faded whitish brown. This is basically the method you're going to use for a medium to heavy weathering on your wood structures. Okay, what I'd like to show you next is a two-color process dry brush method over the same walnut stain that we used prior. We're going to take the reefer white, reefer gray. I want to dip the brush just like we did before in the reefer white, wipe most of it off on the paper towel, and you're going to apply this to the wall. Now what I'm going to suggest is not to cover the whole wall with the white as heavy as we did on the previous section. That's just about it, and you could see the white and a lot of the brown still showing through. Give this a second to set in, and after that what you're going to do is you're going to take your reefer gray, dry brush most of it off again, and you're going to apply the gray right over the white. Again, you're going to want to do this randomly. You don't want to cover too much, and you're going to find that you'll have to go back to this reefer gray more often because you're going over two color sections. Okay, that's it. You're going to let this dry out for a few minutes, and then you're going to see what I want to show you here is the brown stain showing through. You have your white and your main color, your reefer gray, over top, very heavily weathered. What this is going to simulate is a very aged building, peeling paint with a very minimal of effort. Now this wall is complete. It's just that fast. There's no other weathering techniques that you need to do to it. You can begin by putting your doors and windows in now and begin construction of your completed model. On our previous samples, we used walnut stain as a base. Let me show you what happens when we use a driftwood stain as a base over the wall. What we're going to do, again, is apply the driftwood stain, which is mainly a gray stain, over the wall completely. You're going to want to cover it thoroughly. But what you're going to want to do is you're not going to want to wipe this off. You're going to apply it to the wall and let it dry at least 24 hours. Once you let the driftwood dry for 24 hours, you're going to apply your main color. You're going to dip it into the main color, back into the thinner, and then you're going to apply it to your wall section. Now here, you're going to cover it completely. You get as much paint off the brush as you possibly can before you're going back to for more color. And don't worry about it if you see light and dark spots, because this is going to be enhanced once you weather it completely, and this is what the effect you're trying to gain by this. Set this aside to dry for 24 hours. Here's a piece I stained yesterday, so I can show you today how to put the final wash on. What we're going to use is a grimy black wash. What this consists of is a 1 ounce bottle of Dysol, and you add 50 drops of grimy black paint. Mix it thoroughly, and you have a good moderate to heavy wash. What we're going to do with this wash is take it with a wide brush and just apply it over the wall. One coat is usually sufficient. If you'd like to show a real heavy weathered wall, once this dries for 3 or 4 hours, you can go back over it again. What we have here is a totally different weathered wall. You have your red as your main color, and you have your grays showing through, highlights, dark spots, light spots. These two methods I've shown you today are real quick and easy to do, and they will greatly enhance the overall appearance of your layout. And one important thing, be sloppy and have a lot of fun.